Chris Locken and Mr. Big Jim Sullivan. Come on, thank you. Can somebody grab us a couple of mic stands from bottom end? Can you grab us a couple up, please? If you don't mind. Have we not got any, or should I just hold them? This is live, ladies and gentlemen. Believe me. Oh, we found one. Have we got another one to match up with that? No? We only got one, okay. No problem. We'll sort it out.
Anyway, this next one is a thing that we first learned. Eddie Cochran first taught me this in 1960. We sat in the dressing room and chatted as guitarists do. You're all guitarists, so you know how guitar players chat. And he played all this country stuff, because that's what he was. You know, he was really a country guitar player. Just put that there. Yeah.
Turn this down a bit, lads. It's a bit loud, that.
Just a wee bit. Bring that forward a little bit. That's it.
Hey.
We're getting there. Yeah. And one for Lick, so we can...
We can have that one.
No, we may want you to sing, Lick, while you're playing. Anyway, this was the very first thing that Eddie Cochran taught me, Birth of the Blues. Go to a lot of our gigs. When we were the Wildcats, we used to have an old Ford Transit, and Brian Bennett used to be the driver. And we've ended up in some real scrapes, you know, with this train. I remember once down in Wales, we got down to Wales and we were playing in this little mining village, you know, in the middle of nowhere. And it was just covered, everywhere was just these great big, you know, what they call slag heaps. Anyway, it was foggy, real thick fog. You couldn't remember this?
I remember it.
You couldn't see a foot in front of you, you know. And Brian Bennett was over the front of the car driving with his lights full on, trying to find out. And we just kept on driving and we kept on going up. So we thought, well, this is a big hill, you know. And we said, after all, I said, Brian, don't you think we should stop and just have a look where we are, you know? This is, I mean, we could be halfway to the moon by now, you know. So we all get out of this thing and we're looking around, and 4 feet in front of the car, in front of the van, there was a 300-foot drop. It was the top of the slag heap where the trucks all go and tip all the slag down the side. So, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We could have been dead.
Where we went with that van.
Oh God, we were. Yeah. Remember Ireland?
Oh yes, yeah.
We had a gig in. This was great. We had a gig just outside Dublin, about 20 miles outside Dublin, and
That was with Billy Fury, wasn't it?
No, that was Marty.
It was Marty.
It was
Oh,
Marty's last gig in Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
Red Barn it was called, remember?
Oh yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
And we were wondering, you know, what time did we start? Well, we start about 9 o'clock, you know, but the other band hadn't turned up, you know. We said, well, we'll play if you like. Do you remember this? We'll do a bit, you know, play a few blues and a bit of rock and whatever, you know, until Marty comes on, and then do the thing with Marty. Said fine, but 9:15 comes, nobody was there. Then in the distance we heard all this hooting and all that, and we looked out of the window, and right down in the valley there was this long line of cars and buses and thing all come to the Red Barn, you know, and all of a sudden the place just filled up. Anyway, we did our little bit and did our bit with Marty, and at the end of it they wanted us to play a couple of numbers to kind of finish off with. Do you remember this? And we did, and then they said, right, can you play the anthem? So what did we play? Covered in bottles and bricks, and we didn't realise we were in Southern Ireland. We didn't know the bloody anthem anyway, so what the hell? Yeah.
Wow. I don't know where we go from here. We've got a couple of hours, haven't we?
Well, we are playing. This is another thing that Eddie Cochran showed me, but it's kind of developed a little bit over the years, you know. my fingers are a bit stiff coming off the plane, you know. It takes me about 3/4 of an hour to get loosened up nowadays, you know. When you get kind of over 60, you kind of start to tighten up and things go stiff, you know. The wrong things. The wrong things. If it only pertained to that, we'd be all right. You know? We first met down the Two Eyes, I think, wasn't it? Like 1956, 57.
Around. I said you're on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was around 58, actually.
No, we joined Marty in 58.
58, it was earlier than that, 57.
Earlier, I know.
Was it earlier?
Yeah.
Wow, that's going back.
Well, I was 17 when I joined Marty.
Yeah.
Are you older than me or younger than me?
Yeah, older, I think.
How old are you now?
I'm 65.
Oh, well, you are. You collect the old pension, don't you?
I've just received the bus pass.
I haven't got that yet. All I've been told is that I can collect £200 for fuel. What bloody fuel I'm going to get for £200, I don't know. But in those days, it was like we were so young, you know, we didn't know anything about the business or anything about what went on, and we got up the Two Eyes and we used to play in the Two Eyes, didn't we? Just for fun. And you were with Tony Sheridan, I believe.
Yeah, we was the Tony Sheridan trio.
Tony Sheridan, you and Brian.
Brian Bennett, myself and Tony. And then you took over from Tony, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, we were, first of all, it was with the Wildcats, it was Tex Makins of Bobby Woodman. Total nutters. Bobby Woodman was a total nutter. He used to walk around with this great big overcoat on it, and inside the overcoat was an axe. Big, I mean, I'm not you know, head about that big on it. And what he used to do with it, his drums on stage, he used to get these 6-inch nails and nail his drum kit to the stage so it wouldn't move about. You know, I mean, right in the middle of, I remember we backed Russ Conway on our first tour with Marty, and we all had blonde hair. We were told that to join Marty Wilde wanted his band all to have blonde hair, so we all got our hair dyed blonde, you know. You know, seen anything like it. You know, I used to walk home, and one of my best mates, you know, used to walk on the other side of the road. You know, nobody would bloody talk to me. It was incredible. You know. Anyway, we backed Russ Conway on this first tour. They only lasted 2 weeks. They got the sack after 2 weeks, and that's when Licorice and Brian came in and took over. But right in the middle of this Russ Conway doing his bit, you know, Bobby Woodman got off out of his drums because they were slipping a bit, and with this big axe, 6-inch nails, they were like these bloody bang, 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 bang. Knocked about 4 of these. How his drum kit ever stood it, I don't know. It was quite incredible. But anyway, after that, they all got the sack, and that's when the real relationship with Licorice and Brian started. You know, we had some great fun, didn't we? You know, on those tours.
It kept us alive, didn't it? Really, you know,
Well, nearly bloody killed us as well. Keep us alive.
Do you remember going down Evesham Road? Remember that? Actually, it was my bass amp that saved the day, because it was so heavy in the back, it saved us going over the edge.
That's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember another story about your bass amp.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Piccadilly. He just got these big bass amps, you know, big square things. Who made that? What's his name?
In actual fact, it was a homemade one. I borrowed one for a recording session.
Was it? It was a bloody great big thing.
Yeah, massive thing. Vince Coos, his name was.
That's right.
No, Vince.
Anyway, what happens here, we're all going up Piccadilly. I don't know whether you know the escalator at Piccadilly, but it was the longest escalator in the world. And it's a huge, you know, miles, this bloody thing. Anyway, we're going up this escalator, and Lick sees a mate of his coming down the other side. So what does he do? Oh, hello, how are you?
Oh,
And this bass hand has started its journey down the escalator, coming up, all the people coming up were climbing up the walls and diving over the sides, and it didn't smash, did it?
Well, it didn't look as though it did at first. In actual fact, Jim, when it reached the bottom, it was firewood. Yeah. And,
I've always told the story.
No, it was firewood, you know.
Because they didn't make them like that in those days.
My memory serves me right. It was a Vince Cousins amplifier, homemade, very heavy thing. And the next, so I carried it all in pieces and left it in the information desk.
Oh, I told him. I went back and told him his amplifier was in
gone.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, smashed his amp, yeah.
Poor old Lynn, he's gone through some things. Let's see, what else can we play? Something from those days, I can't... I'll just play Bye Bye Blues.
Yeah.
You know Bye Bye Blues?
Oh, possibly.
Hey.
Jim Sullivan.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Big Jim Sullivan.
Yeah. Is there any questions that people would like to ask? There's one here. Yeah, go.
When you were on stage with all these performers, which one did you prefer to use the most? Which one did you like work with the best?
Oh. Well, I think think Tom Jones was probably the greatest, performer that I've seen. I mean, it's very difficult. Again, Tom had such a great voice. He was strange enough, he was very underrated, because people used to see him singing these things like It's Not Unusual and things like that. But I tell you what, if Tom had classical training, he would have been the greatest opera singer you've ever heard. I mean, with the Jack Parnell Orchestra, we've got a 30-piece orchestra and a 70-piece string section in rehearsals, and Tom, without a mic, you can hear him over the whole orchestra. I mean, that takes some power, and singing naturally, not singing, not trying to make it heard. But as for a showman on stage, yeah, he was great. I've seen better showmen, on stage, but for a voice, very few people could touch Tom, Elvis, I think, was, for me, a great moment in my life, to sit down with Elvis and play with him. It was kind of, well, I learned all his licks, all the, all those things, or Mystery Train and all those sort of things, and to sit down, we spent 3 days and nights singing and playing and drinking and telling stories and all that sort of thing with old Elv, and when we first saw him, this was like early 69, he was fantastic. He looked like the Elvis in the early photos. He was slim, he was healthy, he was absolutely incredible, And as the years went past, I mean, I left Tom in 75, 76, 75, and 75, Christmas 75, and that was the last time I saw Elvis, and by then he looked a bit like me, he was fat, and he used to wear this Indian turquoise and silver jewellery, which was beautiful, but I mean, everything was over the top. His rings were like that size, and his bracelets used to go halfway up his arm, and his belt would cover his gut, and he couldn't really talk properly, he'd come up to us. I'm telling you this as a story because it's terribly sad, and it's part of life of musicians and artists that I've seen over this last 49 years that I've been in the business, that how people can end up, multi-millionaire, got the whole world at his feet, and we used to see him coming through Caesar's Palace, and he'd have his entourage of guys with him, and I'd be just walking through, and he'd come up to me, "Hi Jim, how you doing, man?" "Yeah, all right. What's going on?" "I'm going on to see Tom, And then he'd turn around and say, "Hey man, I just got a new ring. You like my ring, man?" And that's how he was talking. That's how he was. From this very bright, together guy, to this meatball, is all I can say, meatball that spoke and sang, and he'd gone, that's it. He died in 77. And it was a great shame to see that, I wouldn't say I feel privileged to have seen it. I feel privileged to have met him and to have played with him and worked with him, but to see any human being go down, go down like he did was just a terrible pity. And going back to your thing, another great artist, another great performer, tremendous performer. I don't know whether, people, one of the great performers from the rock and roll period was Little Richard. Did anybody see Little Richard? Everybody seen Little Richard live? Oh, he was fantastic, but he didn't know when to stop. We first saw him we first worked at the Flamingo in Las Vegas with Tom. And at that time they had all of these bars where all of these artists played. I mean, in one hotel there was Little Richard, another place there was Chuck Berry, and another place there was Fats Domino, and another one there'd be Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, and it was going on. Started at 9 o'clock in the evening, and they did an hour and a half, and then they had like 3/4 or an hour off, and then they did another show, and it went on. The last show was 4 o'clock in the morning. So this first night we get there, you know, we go, well, Little Richard's just over the road. So no, he was in the Flamingo where we were. That's right. So we go and see Little Richard, you know, and he put a fantastic show on. He was absolutely incredible. He sung so well, you know. He was a real gospel singer, you know, not just a rock and roll singer, but a fantastic gospel singer. And he ended up this particular night singing "Dock of the Bay," you know. And he sang it, you know, like I've never heard anybody sing it. He was just incredible. So we clapped, yeah, great man, you know. We sang it again. And we clapped it and he sang it again. And we clapped again and he sang it. By this time we cottoned on, you know, yeah, we clapped it. So he sang it about 8 times, and at the end of it they dropped the curtains and turned all the electricity off in the middle of the thing. Seen some great things, you know. Another night we went over to see Fats Domino at the Sands or something like that. And Fats Domino worked in Vegas because he got in debt with you know, he was like $2 million in debt with the gambling, you know. I mean, he was an inveterate gambler, you know. Anyway, this particular night, he used to start off the side of the stage, you know, and I found my thrill, and on he'd come and he'd be pushing the piano with his thighs across the stage, because he was a big fella. He was about my size, you know, probably more, probably 26 stone, you know, and he'd push this piano along, on Blueberry Hill, and he'd get to the middle of the stage, and he was looking at the audience, and he didn't like the audience at all, so he pushed the piano right off the other stage and never came back. So, you know, any more questions out there?
During the time with the Tom Jones band, was Alan Jones playing bass in that place?
Well, Alan was playing bass, but not with Tom. No. John Rostall was playing bass with Tom.
Ah, right.
Another great story. You know, you all know John Russell as the Shadows bass player after Lick. You know, John was a very good friend of mine, and I don't know what happened there. Just none of us kind of could fathom out why that happened. But another sad tale of the business. You know, it's a funny old business, this, because we've seen people come and go. I mean, guys who have made millions upon millions of pounds, you know, and now they're working in pubs, you know. Joe Cocker was done out of so much money, you know. I mean, it's incredible. Look at the Bay City Rollers. Oh. Bay City Rollers, the bane of my life, that is, the Bay City Rollers. Jesus Christ. I did their TV show with them. Muriel Young called me up and said, would I like to do an educational program for the kids, you know, teaching guitar? So I said, yeah, love to, that'd be great. This is way before anybody else had done it. Anyway, cut a very long, complicated story short. She turned out that the BBC or whoever it was doing it, Granada I think it was, I can't remember now, that decided not to do the teaching thing, but would I like a spot with the Bay City Rollers? So I immediately said no, you know. I said no thanks, no, it's not my kind of thing, you know. Muriel Young rang me up and said, you know, I mean, I'm a musician, you know, I'm a musician first and foremost, I'm not an entertainer, you know, I'm just a musician, and I've been a musician all my life, playing with hundreds of people on thousands of records, and I haven't got the mentality of an entertainer, you know. Entertainers have got a certain way about them, but I just haven't got that, you know. I can talk, yeah, only because I've got hundreds of bloody tales to tell and all that sort of thing. But anyway, Muir Young pleaded with me to do this Bay City roller thing. So I said, well, okay. So after the first one, I went to London Airport. I had to go to Hamburg to do a recording. And guess who had just come in or gone out before me to the London Airport, the Bay City Rollers. And of course, the whole of the airport was covered in tartan-clad teeny boppers, you know. Now they've just seen their guys, you know. Why bloody pick on me? You know, I just walk in and all of a sudden it's they were pulling me and tearing me and grabbing me and you know, 13-year-old girls, you know, they want something to take home, you know. They don't care what it is. They don't care what it is. They grab anything and pull it, you know, and if it doesn't come off, they just don't let go, you know. Anyway, it went on from there. Everywhere I went, I'd get these tartan hordes, you know. I mean, the girls used to go round in like gangs, you know, whether they were going to see the Bay City Rollers or not, you know. And I'd see them down, I'd see these colours down, oh Christ, oh my God, that way. They're coming down there, I go there, you know. But there was always some coming down there as well, you know. So you could never escape them. Anyway, the last thing I did with them, we had 12 shows to do, and on the 6th show, Muir Young asked me to do a classical guitar solo. So I said to him, "Are you sure about this? You know, you want a classical guitar solo? I mean, it's a little bit sensitive for the Bay City Rollers, you know. I mean, you sure you want a classical guitar solo? I can do, you know." So I picked a thing that was a little bit of life in it. It goes. Along those lines, anyway. And anyway, the girls screamed all through this bloody solo. Screamed and shouted, you know. And the guys weren't anywhere in sight, you know. So I thought, no more for me. I think that's enough for me. We'll leave the Bay City Rollers. But I come out of it with one fantastic memory. On one of the shows, I had a thing called the bag, which was like a tube that come up from the guitar into your mouth, and you'd make all these sounds. Huh? Yeah, well, this is a bit before Peter Frampton, but I mean, that doesn't matter. You know, yes, it's Peter Frampton. And so what they decided to do with me, that this thing, they envisaged this thing as a bagpipe. So it couldn't be a bagpipe without me being in full tartan. So what did they do to me? Full tartan, the hat and everything, you know, all the silver, everything, the dirk and the dagger and the bloody sporran and the whole thing, a full outfit, you know. Anyway, this thing, this part of the show got voted number 7 in the top 10 worst ever TV spots. So I've always got that to remember for the Bay City Rollers. Okay, do you want any questions? Do you want to go?
Could you tell us what it was like working with Bobby Darin?
Sorry?
Could you tell us what it was like working with Bobby Darin?
Bobby Darin? Whoa. I mean, here was another man who got very mixed up. I mean, the first time I worked with Bob, he came in and he was very much like Sinatra. These were the real early days, you know, and he sang like Sinatra, and he used to be liked to call Bob. That was how he used to be liked to be called, you know. But then he had had a bit of trouble or something, and he had that hit. The Carpenter, was it?
If I was. Right.
If I Were a Carpenter. And after that, he used to be like to be called Bobby. You know, that's the things I remember about Bobby Darin. I mean, he was great. You know, he was a really nice man. it's very difficult to kind of, when you just work with somebody a couple of times like that, although over the years I probably worked with him half a dozen times, it's very hard to get somebody's character, you know, especially when the bloody character keeps on changing, you know. It kind of changes at will, you know. It's very hard to get down to know somebody like that, you know. Anything else?
Must have done a lot of work with Joe Brown and the brothers as well.
Oh, Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we remember when Joe first got discovered. Do you remember it was a Granada somewhere? And a guy called Julian X out of the Larry Parnes stable, and Joe was part of his band, you know? And I remember coming off stage afterwards, and Jack Good was there, you know, and Jack was like, say you were this Julian X, you know, he was kind of going towards Julian X and going, absolutely fantastic. And when he got to Julian X, he bypassed him, walked straight past him, and grabbed hold of Joe. And the next Friday, Joe was on the Boy Meets Girl, or whatever it was, the Jack's TV show, and never looked back since. One of the great characters of the business, Joe Brown. Yeah, he plays great banjo. He goes over to Nashville every year and plays with a bunch of Nashville session musicians. He plays great mandolin, you know, great flat top picking guitar. Yeah, no, he's good. He's a good all-rounder, old Joe. Good all-rounder. Good old Cockney lad.
There will be ample time tomorrow because David Martin is going to chair a question and answer time with Jim and Vickers tomorrow. So, if
yeah, fine. Stop. Yeah. Yeah, quite happy
just we
to.
have time to.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, it's Jim Sullivan, ladies and gentlemen. We're on this side. Tomorrow will be another day at it, and I'm quite sure you're looking forward to seeing the guys again. But absolutely fantastic. Yeah, you enjoy that? Very good. Just one thing, Jim, are these your fingers down here? Very, very good. Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Excellent.